Hey everyone, welcome to episode 145 of the Ceres Podcast. Today we're diving into an extraordinary episode of the Ceres Podcast featuring Paulo De Tarso. Paulo is a distinguished restaurateur and maitre d', renowned for his dedication to hospitality and exceptional customer service. His career began in the United States, setting the foundation for his acclaimed approach to service and hospitality. Paulo's journey has taken him from working in New York and Los Angeles from the age of 16 to becoming a celebrated figure in London's restaurant scene, notably at the Wolsey, Scott's in Mayfair, and later Bar Boulud in London under the mentorship of Daniel Boulud. In 2016, Paulo opened Margot, an Italian restaurant in Covent Garden, further solidifying his reputation for exquisite cuisine and impeccable service. Beyond running successful restaurants, Paulo is also a motivational speaker, sharing his insights and experiences at events like Taste of London. He extends his expertise through consulting, team-building events and training sessions across various sectors, because every sector wants to learn about hospitality. Paulo's achievements have been recognised with numerous awards, including the AA Awards and Tatler Restaurant Awards, and numerous nominations like the Katie Awards and GQ Awards. His commitment to social responsibility is evident through his participation in charitable initiatives such as Galvin's Chance, the Chefs with Altitude Farm Africa Climb, and efforts supporting Action Against Hunger. Paulo exemplifies the spirit of hospitality, blending passion, dedication and commitment to excellence that inspires both professionals and enthusiasts to the hospitality industry. Forgive me for a quick ad read, as someone has to pay the bills around here. Today's episode is brought to you by Ceres Natural Degreaser. Introducing the Ceres Natural Degreaser, your ultimate cleaning champion for battling stubborn grease and grime, whilst respecting our planet. Say goodbye to harsh chemicals and hello to a powerhouse cleaner that's as gentle on the environment but tough on dirt. Our cutting-edge formula is fragrance-free, phosphate-free, BPA-free and 100% natural, ensuring a safe and effective guilt-free clean. Ceres Natural Degreaser boasts a potent, no-nonsense approach to cleaning, making light work of even the toughest grease stains. Don't let its natural composition fool you. This degreaser packs a punch, delivering a turbocharged cleaning performance without compromising on safety or standards. Designed with professional kitchens in mind, our natural degreaser excels on greasy surfaces, offering a non-caustic, biodegradable, economical solution that works brilliantly in all water conditions. Its non-tainting formula, free from perfumes and dyes, leaves surfaces spotlessly clean and neutral. Versatile and powerful, the natural degreaser is not just for kitchens, it's the perfect ally for your fish and chip shops, restaurants, hotels, street food and catering establishments, from kitchen floors, work surfaces and equipment to pots, pans and laundry. This degreaser effortlessly removes grease and stains, including coffee, blood and more. Discover the transformative power of Ceres Natural Degreaser. Whether pre-soaking, pot washing or cleaning greasy floors and bins, order your Ceres Natural Degreaser today from ceres.shop with free delivery to mainland UK. We also deliver to Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, all the British Isles, and let's not forget we've also activated shipping for our most popular requested locations: Belgium, France, Italy, Germany, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Spain and Greece. Now, let's get back onto the show. On to today's episode with Paulo De Tarso. Let me know what you think of this episode and be sure to leave us a review on your favourite podcast player. This episode does not disappoint. Paulo, welcome to the Ceres Podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
No, we've wanted you on for some time and we just haven't made it work, have we? We need to prioritize a bit more.
Yeah, no, so true. But glad to be here now.
So, how was football today? You go football in the
Yeah,
mornings.
football is the only time that I have that I don't have to think. So yeah, it was good. We actually lost by a goal, but it was a good game, and both
It,
of my boys play, so that was fun.
it's impressive that you go play football first thing in the morning.
Mm. It only happens on Friday morning, but
Yeah.
it's fun because it used to start at 8:15, but now it starts at 8. So I'm up at 7:15. But it's days like this where you have a little sun. It just like it starts your day in a perfect. Whether you lose or win, it starts your day in a perfect scenario. So you're ready to go.
Are you a competitive player, or do you just go for the health bits, or is it both?
No, I'm really competitive. The minute
Oh,
I
are
get
you?
on that pitch, my wife hates it, but I'm very competitive, very Brazilian when it comes to football.
So you're not just a casual watcher. You're literally getting stuck in, and you're dangerous on the pitch.
Yeah, I want to win. I think it's a beautiful sport. It's a great exercise, and I want to win.
So you said something there that I was just going to pick on actually, and the words "you want to win." Is that something that you take to work with you every day? Do you think?
Yeah, I do. I think we all came to this planet Earth, as you call it, and we came here to develop. We came here to grow. We came here to be the best versions of ourselves. And and growing up in a restaurant industry, you have to have this discipline, and that's what I love about football. You have to be very disciplined about your everything you do, your body, your mind, your training section, and you have to be very focused, especially also in the restaurant environments. You're looking after people that plan to come to you and plan to spend their money with you, and it's your obligation to look after them. And yeah, and you have to have that mindset of always trying to be the best version of yourself.
Interesting. So how does Paulo De Tarso grow up in Brazil, end up in New York as a pot washer, and then make the leap to the UK? And I mean Paolo Di Tarso, the hospitality guy, not the saint. So, so tell me how give us a brief background of how you ended up in New York doing pot washing, and then to how you got to where you are.
It's a really crazy story, and I'm glad you picked on it because when I did TED Talk, that's something that I spoke about. In Brazil, a friend of our family, Francisco Silva, who was planning to go to Brooklyn, New York, and open a coffee shop with a friend of his who was part Brazilian, part American, and they had they were planning to open in Brooklyn. That was a good area; it was upcoming, and I just out of the blue, I asked Francisco if I could go. And Francisco was laughing, and then I, for some reason, was serious about it. I mentioned to my family. My family contacted Francisco to find out if it was true or not. And I remember him coming over and said, "Look, I wasn't planning to. We talked about it, in a friendly manner. Didn't plan really to. I didn't really think he would come, but I think it would be an incredible experience if he were to come, and he's more than welcome." And then I did. My family allowed me to do it, and there
How
was
old were you?
I was 16 years old.
Wow, that's a big deal to just
It's
go to another country at 16.
It really is. I even remember on the day that I was leaving to New York, my mom had the iron board, and she was teaching me how to iron a shirt. I think even for our family, because I was the youngest out of six, and we're all very close. At this point in time, I was kind of having. I never met my father. I had a stepfather that was with us for a long time, and that relationship didn't work out. And there was a new person coming in on the scene, which me and my brothers and sisters didn't. I don't think we really got along with them, and I think there was an opportunity there, and I think that's why I kind of felt like, wow, this might be a good opportunity for me to go, and it worked out, I'm really glad I did, because uh, there's no better university to, in the world. My grandfather used to say that all the time, than to actually travel and experience and learning such a young age.
How old are your boys?
Luke is 16, my oldest. Tristan is 14, and Liam is 12.
So if Luke at 16 said, Dad, I want to move to Brazil, well, maybe not Brazil, Argentina, I want to go to New York, what would you say?
Not in a million years. I love that you asked that question, because Heidi, my wife, is always mentioning that. She goes, you left. I'm like, stop planting that seed on them. I don't want that. It's really
Yeah.
strange, because, I'll tell you something about me that I find it very odd. I was the youngest, so I had a lot of freedom. My mom worked, and my stepfather worked, and everybody in the family went to school, and I had a lot of freedom as a boy. And I was, I did climb trees and play football. I played in academy, and I did all these other things. But with my boys, I'm very protective. It's really interesting. Although they do well academically, and they all play football, but oh my God, if Luke were, I know that couple of years he's going to leave to go to university. It's what President Obama used to say, having kids is like having your heart outside your chest. And yeah, but I probably wouldn't.
So
It would
growing
say
up in
more, but I know it's
Brazil,
gonna
growing up in Brazil, yeah, I guess you were a bit more freer. Like you say, you're always out playing. Were you working at any point in Brazil? I know you're quite young, but
good question, because my stepfather, Portuguese background, and very disciplined, and I remember he got me a job changing windows for cars on
okay,
weekends, and I did that. I did that for a few months, and then a friend of mine, whose father worked in Wall Street, said, Paulo, listen, if you wanted to work in a Wall Street, my father's office, you can be an office boy delivering, at the time they deliver contracts to be signed and so forth. And I did. I got approved from my mom, and I worked all day, and I went, and then I changed schools. I went to, it was a private school that would allow me to, because I went to public school, but there was a private school that allowed us to study at night at that age. And I did. And I did that for a year before, I moved to New York. So that was fun.
so you're in New York, like you're essentially an immigrant. How does it go? Like, how are you feeling? Is there any trepidation? Are you worried, or are you just sort of throwing yourself into work at this point?
I'm really excited. Francisco, he's an architect, and Edna, his partner, is a really nice lady. We get there, we're super excited. They have few places in mind in order to get the place going. My English was not perfect by any means. I'm excited. I'm very excited, but of course nervous at the same time. But everything was so new, and with her, she lived there. She knew everything about it. I think it made us a little bit more confident about everything. And then as we started the process of, we found the location, and then we're like, okay, this is the location. We got the location. We signed the lease. The design, Francisco was coming in, and then her aunt and uncle were helping out, and then the process started, and we were literally, working from 5 a.m. to midnight for months before we even opened. And so I think the process, but it was, I remember we had this huge van that we drove across town, and Francisco and I remember one time we got pulled over. We barely could communicate with the police officer, but it was all I think I was really excited more than nervous, and watching everything unfold was really fun.
What happened with the coffee shop? Did it succeed? Did it close?
So we opened, and it did really well. The neighbors, it was at the time Brooklyn Franklin Avenue was a Jewish Haitian combination of a lot of different cultures, And it was simple what we started. It did well, and it did well for a whole period of a year. And then what happened was the partner, Francisco's partner, kind of I think she wanted to have a relationship with him and become close to him, and he didn't want to, and he decided that he wanted to go a different direction. And then he asked me, Paulo, listen, I'm going to go back to Brazil. What are your thoughts? And for me, I was so excited about what I've learned this 1 year period. And he went back, and my visa is still valid. And I'm like, look, I'm going to stay, and I stayed. And that was a bold move. That part, that was when I was like, okay, I have a certain amount of money for the certain amount of time. I need to find a job. That part, I remember going, I got to find something, because I had, not really a CV in hospitality. So I had to start from the bottom. And I remember looking for a job, and I found a job as a dishwasher at a famous Japanese place in Soho.
Wow. And so obviously, and that did not phase you starting at the bottom in the kitchen. That was not an issue for you at all.
No, for me at the time, what I learned with Francisco and her, the way putting the concept of finding a location and signing contracts and learning how to, what are we going to provide, the customer experience. It was so fun, and it was so uplifting to watch people coming from different backgrounds and asking where we're from and getting a cup of coffee and getting one of our cakes or pastry, whatever it was. I fell in love with that process. And when I knew that if I remember walking Columbus Avenue, and I walking all to these places, and I went to Soho, and I found this place at this Japanese location. I went, you know what? I can't go. What I didn't even know. I don't think I knew at the time what a busboy was, or I knew what a waiter was, and I knew that some part, but I really didn't know. So I figured if I apply for washing dishes, I can learn the rest. And I remember I remember the chefs yelling at me, and I was never fast enough, and they were so busy. And the way I left this place was because I was taking out the rubbish, and both of the rubbish had glass, and I cut both of my legs on the side, and it was pretty bad. And the next morning they fired me. They let me go. And that was a point that feeling I never forgot. But I remember I'm a kind of happy-go-lucky kind of guy, and I remember next morning. I right after they fired me, and I went, okay, wow, why, and I got a cup of coffee, and I got a list of all the restaurants in New York, and I went door to door, and I got a job as a busboy right away.
Wow. So here's what I don't get, and you've doing the job that's hard. You've been fired. You've been treated poorly, I'd imagine, and I imagine kitchens in New York in those days weren't thinking about people's mental health and how people were being treated. And I'm sure London was the same. So you were probably treated terribly.
Yeah.
And let's face it, the hours must have been crap. Work was hard. Customers were probably demanding. The chefs were also demanding. What made you want to do it? What made you say, I want to carry on doing this thing?
I remember I remember talking to my family on the phone, and I remember talking to my grandfather. And my grandfather, when I was a little boy, I spent every summer with him, and he was always trying to teach me English, and he just told me about history, and always telling me so many things. And I remember speaking with him. I wasn't quite sure what to do, and I will never forget. He said, "You're in one of the best countries in the world, and there's nothing here in this country for you. Stay there. Just stay there." And I remember doing the trial for a busboy in this restaurant. It was a beautiful setting, Dennis on the Park, and it was a beautiful setting. And they hired me. And then my uniform was different. So, and I looked good. I was clean. I was in the kitchen. And then I remember learning that, I had my very simple duties from from regular coffee, iced tea, bring bread and butter to the table, clear the table, communicate with the waiters. And when I remember on my first shift that all the waiters came in, 5 different waiters, and all tipped me. And I have, whatever amount it was, I think it was between $200 to $250. And I went, wow, if I earned this every day, and I was calculating what I had to pay rent and the transportation, and I'm like, wow, I can do this. And then when I realized that I became really good, and all the main head waiters would go, no, Paulo's mine. Paulo, you got the section. And I just realized that I could add value to the service, and I became really good at it. So then my English developed, my Spanish was really good. I started becoming part of the service, and then I was able to relate and speak to clients, and I start asking questions. If I become a waiter, how much would this guy's make? And then I remember, those days, even the waiters at night, only worked night. Waiters in the daytime either work breakfast and lunch or just lunch. So the money that they made, it was a lot. But then, I was developing the skills of, being part of the service and being very busy and being very good at it, of communicating with the clients. And I think, what do you learn there? Because you need to, it's almost like football in a way. You need to anticipate. You need to be sharp. You need to be able to deal with problems in a short term. I mean, you're not really dealing with problems because the main head waiters and managers are dealing with that. But you just become part of this team that is a machine, and you have busy periods. And I start becoming really good at it, and I love I love how we made people feel good, and I love the regulars, and I just it was something about hospitality, the little seed that was like, wow, we can change people's behavior, and we can change attitudes, and we can become part of this, making people feel a little better today that they, it was about making people feel good about themselves.
Do you think that the job also built confidence in you?
Completely, because now all of a sudden I have my schedule, I have my rota, I know where I have to be. My uniform needs to be clean. I have to be there. There's the certain times, and now I'm focusing on learning everything about the menu and the wines and everything else, because more I learn, quicker I develop, and that's how I start moving up the ranks, because I knew that I became an asset to people. I was an asset to the head waiters, and then the managers were like, Paulo, it's time for you to become a waiter. And even though it was breakfast shift, and I had to start at 6 in the morning, breakfast was what made me the most, really strong, because you're dealing with people that are, it's very difficult. They're, and you don't get their, the eggs correct, and it's quick and it's rush. So you're dealing with a lot of problems. You're learning in so many levels. You're dealing with people that you work with. You're dealing with happy people, unhappy people. You're dealing with clients. They're difficult or in a rush. You're dealing with so much. So if you're willing to step back and go through that process, you're really, really learning at the best university right there, the university of the hard knocks, because you're dealing with what's really happening.
And I guess if lunchtime is hard because you've got time constraints, I'd imagine breakfast is compounded even further because you've got even more time constraints. People want to get to work, or they're having a breakfast meeting or whatever, so things need to go smoothly.
Breakfast is the most difficult service there is. I mean, I did breakfast at the Wolseley for a long time, and people are, they're just starting their day, and breakfast, we're talking seconds, where the eggs can be not correctly, or the oatmeal. There's so many things that you got to deal with quickly. But I mean, for me, is where I learned the most, because it's just Breakfast, people are starting their day. Lunch, they're still in a rush. They gotta get to meetings. They gotta do that. But then when I became a dinner head waiter or waiter, oh my God, it's the best because not only they're relaxed, they're having wine, they're having drinks, and now you can really, perform and do all the little things that you do that makes you a better waiter than everybody else.
And I guess also in a way, you just mentioned you're doing breakfast at the Wolsey. If if you're at the beginning of someone's day and you do something to ruin it, they're carrying that with them for the whole day. Whereas if the opposite is true and you did something, whether it was seamlessly special or just you just made sure that you had a great breakfast, that also carries with them for the whole day, doesn't it?
But what also it's beautiful. What I like about human beings. What I learned, working in Beverly Hills for so many years, is that you're dealing with all kinds of different people. But the goal and the purpose is always the same. Providing the best service you can possibly and make those people feel good, especially in America where that you're getting tipped, and so every smile is it's $1. The crumbing the table is $1. The way so what happens in this stage when I was in Beverly Hills, what I learned the most is that you become people's psychiatrist, you become people's friend, you become people and so I remember not to brag, but I next to the maitre d' station in Beverly Hills, I mean, I had 20, 30 people requesting my section because I knew I was fast, I was quick, I knew how to, really look after the client, and I knew it's about that reading, the anticipating, the guests, if they're in a rush, in communicating. I was always very good on communicating with them. Are you in the rush? Okay, perfect. So let's not order that because you need to get to the airport. So we're gonna have a salad. I can get you a salad real quick. A chicken rotisserie salad. Rotisserie is quick. I can get that salad to you. Because if you're having a steak medium, it's gonna take you 18 to 22 minutes. You won't be able to make it to the airport. So I remember one incident. I'll tell you, it's the best thing ever. I remember this guy came in, and he was by himself, and he was in a rush. And then I convinced him to order salad. And then when I ordered salad, I brought it to the table, and I kind of I said, look, you might want to be off the phone. Your food is here. And he told this person, I'll call you back. And it's like, who do you think you are? He said to me. And I said, sir, I'm sure you're pretty busy. And your meal is here, and it's time for you to look after yourself, and you're also in a rush. All I want is for you to enjoy your meal. This guy was like a CEO of a major company who later became my client after that. He goes, wow, that's very thoughtful of you, because he wasn't quite sure what I was trying to explain to him. But I just developed this. I just knew how to do it. You just learn how to do with people. And that's the best way, because also, you can never, To Kill a Mockingbird. Let's go back to my favorite book. You can never judge a human being, until you walk in their shoes, because sometimes you're dealing with really difficult people, but you just don't know what has happened to them and why they behave in a certain way.
I guess, and that's the thing. You've always got to take, in some ways, a light touch to sort of see. And I bet you're constantly observing from a distance. What are they going through today? Have they got kids on that table that are stressing them out? Do they look tired? What are they eating? And it's constant, isn't it?
Well, it really is. It's funny because I remember serving this mother with 2 kids in a pram. And she ordered hot chocolate for the kids. And I brought it and I put it right in front of the kids. And she happened to be a famous movie star. And she goes, you don't have any kids, do you? And I go, why? She goes, you just put those 2 hot chocolates right in front of them. And I go, oh my God, you're right. Let me get. I remember taking it back to the bakery, and I put in takeaway cups, and I go, oh, I'm so sorry. So yeah, you just you learn, and you observe, and the beautiful thing is, like for example, often we see a footballer take a penalty and he misses, and we criticize him because he does that every day. But the beautiful, as Gordon Ramsay say, we are as good as our as our last service, right? So we're doing the same thing every single day. And so as an actor, on Broadway, in the West End, you're performing every single day, different audience and different clientele. And your energy and just anticipate and look after them. And you make mistakes and you correct them in the next time. And you just become better and better and better at dealing with the situations because, bottom line, people just want, what I've learned, is that, take care of the situation. There's no point of you arguing with this guy. He's not happy with the meal. Take the meal away. Give him the menu. Sir, I apologize. I'm truly sorry. Kitchen. I remember I made a lot of mistakes. I remember, in the days in Beverly Hills, I had to pay for every mistake I made. Sometimes I had to pay for 3, 4, 5 steaks that I made. And once I did that a few times, I never made mistakes anymore. I became friends with the chef. It's like, hold this for me. They're taking a long time. The first course, I send this too early. And then you build this relationship with your team that they trust you. And you can start, correcting all those little mistakes that, chef, can you hold that for me? And it's a beautiful profession. Talking about it makes me really excited. It's funny.
So when you were in America, looking back now, at what point do you think, what role was it or what restaurant was it when you thought, I'm onto something here. I am in hospitality. I love it. I am onto something. I'm on a career path.
Wow, that is a great question. When I was in Beverly Hills, there was 2 of us that were the best head waiters in Beverly Hills. Not in Beverly Hills, but at this restaurant, Misco, me and him. And we would sell $10,000 a day each. And we always competed with each other. And I think he, to be honest, probably beat me more often, but we were really good. So we came in at 2 p.m. and we kicked everybody, all the waiters out, go home, go home, go home. And we worked from 2 to 11. And we can handle, he took the back of the restaurant, I took the front. At this time, between 2 and 5, I had 16 tables. And I remember the general manager, amazing general manager, never forget him, Giuseppe Conzarino. He would come in the morning and he would have his coffee, and he was so busy doing, all the admin. And he would give me his card for the squirrel, for the computer. With that card, I can solve any problems. I can void, I can do whatever. And at that point, people were asking me if I wanted to become a manager. And I knew I had it. So at this point, I'm not only running the floor, I'm literally doing everything that a manager would do. But at the time, we make so much money as waiters, head waiters, and that I didn't want the responsibility. I wasn't ready for that. But at that time, I knew I could take off and I could be very good at this job.
And then what made you take the leap to coming to the UK?
It was a combination of a few things. Heidi finished Loyola University, and she was working for a big producer in Los Angeles called Wendy Feinerman. And she worked all day, and I pretty much work all day, and we never got to see each other. And we lived together at this point, and we just felt that it was time for a change. We just never got to see each other. We worked 16-hour days. What are we doing this for? I had this dream of I wanted to be an actor, but I never really did the craft and work dedicated the same way I dedicated myself in the restaurant world. And we decided, we went to Brazil, and we spent 7 months in Brazil. And we got really healthy. We walk, we travel, we really had time for ourselves to decide what we want to do. Margot is English, and Heidi's father is German. And we always wanted to live in Europe. And in London, it was a place that I could come. And Heidi, with her paperwork. I could come as with her, and we decided, let's go to London. It's just an incredible city, and Heidi, spent her childhood coming here all the time.
So did you know when you were coming to London that you was going to work in hospitality, or was it still a bit, let's see how it goes?
No. That we had no idea that we were going to stay here. I remember we rented a flat. Our flat wasn't ready for about 10 days, so we stayed with Heidi's friends, Catherine and Andrew, and it was all new. And then I remember Catherine mentioned to me, said, Paulo, the Ivy, the guys, Chris Corbin and Jeremy King, that's got kind of a place that you want to go if you want to, work here. And the rest is history. And I was really excited about London. I just, everything about it. I remember coming in and going, wow, this is incredible.
And what do you think, looking at the differences between New York and London, and obviously mentioned Beverly Hills as well, but like working in the restaurants, what do you think was the most notable difference?
The most notice, there's two parts. I think, New York is massive, and I think in terms of restaurants, in America, I service when it comes to front of the house. Our front of the house is really friendly. It's really kind. It's really open. And I'm not saying that it didn't happen here at the time, but it's very vibrant because in America I guess there's a lot of factors, but the tipping culture, there's usually when you hire someone for front of the house in the United States, you got to make sure that they can communicate well. And when I was in London, I remember going to places where several times people didn't really necessarily understood what you were saying, or they were more robotic. I think at the time I found that people are in America a lot more friendlier when it came to service, and I thought the skill, the technical skill in Europe, it's way better. But I think that the front house staff in America are a lot friendlier.
I wonder if that's just generally down to the fact that I think I think there is almost like it's a known fact that American customer service is in every level is probably a little bit more perkier, a little bit more happier. That whether it's contrived or not, people are trained to bend over backwards for the customer.
Yeah,
and I think that's a quite a known fact, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, no, it is, and you feel it. It's customer service, and I noticed that was the difference. Like I remember watching the technical ability in restaurants, the way they poured the water, the way the wine, the way they held things, the way they did things. I was like, wow, it was really impressive the way they behaved, the way that we did that. But then when it came to communication skill, then certain levels, you're dealing with your head waiter that. He was English or French, or sometimes you're dealing with people there. You ask a question and they didn't understand what you're saying. But I think the technical ability is it's that.
You mentioned tipping, and that is a big difference between the UK and the USA. How was that getting your head around it? Obviously, you're working at the Ivy or wherever, you're not receiving tips. Does that change your mindset, or are you still going out to do the same thing? And then on a broader note, what do you think? What system's better in your mind?
Look, I think I think generosity in general. I think if someone is going really out of their way to provide you the best service there is, and they're just sharp and they're on it, and they're I learned this from my Heidi's family, from her father, her mother. You stay in a hotel, make sure you leave money under the pillow for the maid. That's the lowest job in a hotel. You stay there for a week. Leave some money for her. So I think that adore someone that does something exceptional for you. So I believe that as we work hard because we in America we rely on tips. So yes, I need to provide the best service there is. I remember, I remember following a lady once and her kids down the street. It was a $400 or $500 bill, and she left me no tip. And I ran after her. I did, and I asked her, "Excuse me, you forgot to leave a tip." She goes, "Oh, in Australia we don't tip." And I'm like, "Look, I just should let you know. We barely get a paycheck." So she goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know." So I don't think that it would be so beautiful that that we don't have to react and do everything because we're relying on the tip. I think in terms of the trunk system here, has a lot of flaws. We've seen this happening in big companies that put this trunk together and they're using for something else in the restaurants. But a lot of restaurants have made that work properly, where they really look after the staff and they make sure that all that money is going to them. In America, it's almost like they're independent workers, but they rely on that tip, and it is important for them because they don't make a paycheck. I don't know. I think what Danny Meyer is doing in America is incredible. He's taking all the tipping system away. And he had, the prices on the products are more expensive, so people don't have to worry about tipping. And so far, it's really working really well for him. And the bottom line is that people need to be paid what they are, what they deserve.
And I guess what's probably good about the UK to some degree is that in comparison to America is that we do have a minimum wage. And people in hospitality over here probably do get paid well. So the bonus just really tops up their wages, as opposed to in America, like you said, where most people aren't getting a paycheck. It's bonus related.
What's amazing here, I work for big groups here, and and you get paid really well, and if you wanted to buy a home, you know exactly what you're getting every month. That part is it's a lot better because especially if you're building a family, you're young, you want to buy a house, you're getting paid, even though the months that the business is not making money, January, February, March, or the slow periods, you're still getting paid the same amount. So I think it works out better here.
Just thinking about some of the places that you worked at in America, like, do you think there was someone in particular that you really sort of, at the time in America, you really respected, someone in the restaurant business, and you thought, this person knows what they're doing? And do you still keep in touch with that person now?
It's funny enough. I'm friends. I really fell in love with our GM at the time in Beverly Hills, and we're not very close, but I'm still friends with some of the head waiters that I work with. He was probably one of the best general managers I ever worked. I mean, that restaurant, it was the busiest restaurant of the entire group. And we were doing 800 covers a day, breakfast, lunch, all day, and dinner. And we had a bakery, and the bakery was doing incredible. You had a sandwich section, barista, and he was, we all loved him and we all respected it. We all worked hard for him, and he was generous. He was kind, and he always looked after everybody. I remember, wanted to be like him. I remember him going to holidays and coming to me and say, he would smack me in the face and say, "Paulo, behave, huh? Don't do anything stupid while I'm gone." Things like that. It becomes, that whole team becomes such a part of your family, and the mechanism of looking out for each other was beautiful. I remember looking at him, and I remember, yeah, and it's some of the chefs, some of the major chefs, that Denny Meyer. I heard of Denny Meyer when I was in New York, and a restaurateur that opened his restaurant at 27 years old and 28 years old. And then when I read his book, my life completely changed. I knew that I wanted to do this for life.
Well, he really put it on the line, didn't he? To turn it, to turn something into a hospitality business. And I guess when he started, not many people had a lot of faith that he could do it.
Yeah, and especially, especially in New York, there's so many restaurants in New York, and it's not an easy place to do it. Same as in London, and but people like Danny, they do with integrity. They everything they do, is not. I learned so much from him, and one of the things that I learned from him is that hospitality is not just about restaurants and hotels. You can bring hospitality into any business, retail to any business, really. Hospitality is a business tool that should be taught in universities, and it's not there, and it should be, because whether you own a gallery or you own a retail company. I work with a lot of major companies now. How is your staff treating the customer that comes through the door? How are you looking after them? If you're a barber or a hairdresser, how are you dealing with your clients and the way they come in, the way they book? It's a process that hospitality is something that it doesn't cost you anything, and it's beautiful to look after people, and people, same. A lot of people, like, for example, doctors and for me, doctors and dentists and hairdressers. I would stay with the same person forever if I could, because we're customers. We're loyal. We don't want change. And I think hospitality. What Danny has done with this company, and just should our world of hospitality. We've learned so much from him.
How have you managed in all those years in America to not actually work for Danny? How did?
Yeah, because so what happened was, because I went from New York to California. So I moved to San Diego, and San Diego went to Los Angeles, and then he was in New York, and we decided, because Francisco came back, and we decided to move to California. So that's what happened. So believe me, we became friends later on, and I became very close to him, and I admire him very much, and I've learned so much from him. But yeah, I never have, and maybe I should move to New York for a few months and work with him.
But obviously, doing a bit of research and reading up on you, there's two names that keep coming up in a lot of your articles that you've done, and you almost pay reverence, respect to Chris Corbin and Jeremy King, and it's repetitive. Like, I mean, in almost every interview you've done, like, you've mentioned them. And for those that don't know about Corbin and King, tell us a little bit about why you show them so much respect.
So when I first came to 2005. I'm in London, and I heard their group was the best group in London, and then I remember I had an interview with Ivy, and they didn't have anything for me, and I went to Daphne's, and I work at Daphne's. And they didn't have any management job. They didn't have anything, and they told me that I had to start as a head waiter, and I did. And I met Jesus Adorno, and I met several people that told me that you need to meet Jeremy King and Chris Corbin, and you gotta go see them. And I went to the Wolseley, and I met with them, and I became a maitre d' there. I mentioned their names because I think that what they have created. Let's just, in terms of, the Wolseley is a beautiful place. It's a beast. At the time that I was there, we were doing 1,500 covers. But they pay the staff well. Staff is treated with utmost respect. Service is thoughtful and spotless. They think of every process, from everything. From a table design, logistics, how everything works, and I admire them. I admire them, and I worked with them for a few years, and still to this day, I'm close to. I can call Jeremy King and speak to him.
Mm.
And I think what they've done for hospitality, it's of course, there's famous chefs and three Michelin star, two Michelin star, one Michelin star chef, but um, you know, um, it's about the team. A chef is an artist, and there's the kitchen, and then it comes the pass. The pass is a border where it's the front of the house that's dealing with the problems. It's the front of the house that's welcoming the customers. It's the front of the house that's making the bookings. That's the front of the house that's taking all the details of the booking. The Cirque du Soleil, the performance is us. So you of course, working with Daniel Boulud, best chef I ever worked with. I love him as he's like, the closest thing. I'm so close to him, and I love him very much. But I think what Chris Corbin and Jeremy King did for hospitality is that it is a recognizable job. It's something that you take and you work hard with integrity, and you perform, and you can start it as a pot washer like me, and you can become a general manager today. You can become a director of operations, and you can open your own restaurant today. So I think Chris Corbin and Jeremy King have done a lot for London. And and especially when I came to London, I didn't, you have the Michel Roux, you have, you have Chris Corbin, Jeremy King. Later on, you have Richard Caring, but and big company. In New York, we have a lot more bigger companies, and I think what they've done for the hospitality world here, and I think they're gentlemen, they're kind people.
That's the word that was just coming to my head. Like you'd said it in sentence, but it's they're gentlemen. They no one's really got a bad word to say about them, and if they did, they'd never say it out loud. They're very professional. They're very respectful to others. I've never. I don't know. I just think I've emailed Jeremy a few times about other bits, and always respectful, always and I think one thing that I've noticed as an outsider, as a customer, as such, is that the service is always impeccable, and the front of house or maitre d' or whoever would never say no. I love the fact that they just constantly offer you different time slots. So if you go there and say, "Oh, have you got anything for 12:30 on a Friday?" We can do 12:15. We can do 12:45, but they never actually say no. We can't. They just keep throwing out different suggestions, and
yeah. I mean, I became a maitre d' because they thought I would be a good maitre d', and I remember my years at the Wolseley. Everybody called me the American. Get the American, and he will sort you out. And then when I opened, I went from there. I went to Scott's, with Richard Caring. But when I opened a Bar Baloo, I was a maitre d'. We were doing 800 covers a day. And your goal is never to say no. Your goal is to, it's options. It's look. One thing that I think I stood out as a maitre d' is that it's honesty. Hi, look, I'm fully booked. I have, 4 tables ahead of you. You have a quick drink in the bar and a starter maybe, and I will feed you. I will find something for you. And I think, it's really important to have that dialogue and be really honest with people, because honest you are, and you build this clientele that follows you and always goes there because they know that you're going to look after them. I think that is it's being genuine, and it's really important to do that.
one thing I sort of appreciate about the Corbin and King, what was Corbin and King, but what Jeremy King built essentially is that the chef isn't the highlight of everything. It is all about the team. Like if you go on their website, there's not a chef's page and meet the chef, and we've took on X chef, and the chef's not the star.
No.
Whereas I think a lot of other restaurants, the chef is the star, and it is probably needed in some ways because other restaurants are set up differently. But why is that, do you think, in your experience when you were there? Why is that?
I think, they went back to, going back to, what brasseries, bistros in Paris, this grand cafe style where, how often I've been going out to eat in a lot of restaurants that I open a menu now, a lot of places. There's nothing I wanted to eat. You go to the Wolseley. The build is incredible. What they've done with that, but they created an environment that you're always welcome. You see a menu that is for everyone in there. That's what you want to eat, and they focus on looking after the clients. And the chef is something that they never made a point of it, and also, it's different level of restaurants, with Michelin and those kind of restaurants, people focus more on a chef, which is, I love chefs. Most of my friends are chefs, and I love what they do and I respect what they do, but it's not necessarily just about the chef. Is about the entire team. Is the team that, and chefs know that, they realize that also. But that's the beauty of it. You can go there anytime and have your coq au vin, or you have your cheeseburger, or have whatever, any day and time, and it's serving for you. And it's about the food and looking after you and getting you in and out, and that's it. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I was thinking about this. I was going through my photos last night, and I'm a serial photo taker, like everyone now. And it's frustrating because in 2010-ish, maybe 11, me and the wife went to Bar Balut.
Yeah.
And you would have been working there at that time. I don't remember exactly if you were there. The food was nice. It was very dark, so I couldn't take any photos with my iPhone 4. But I've literally got photos of the day before when we went to Roca, and we went somewhere else the next day. So I've got all the photos, just not the photos for Bar Balut. So how long were you working there, and what was it like working for Daniel?
I was a Scots. We had an incredible team as Scots, that I was really fond of, and even Russell Norman, who recently passed away, was on our team. He was a director there, but I was really happy there, and I didn't really want to leave. And then the opportunity came to work for Daniel Boulud. We opened May 10th of 2010. I came on board a month before, and it was the most incredible 6 years of my life. I became really close to Daniel Boulud. We created an incredible team. Mandarin. It was not in the basement because we had our own entrance. But we didn't have the best furniture in the world. We didn't have the best art in the world. But what we had an incredible chef, Daniel Boulud, who was not well known in Europe. He was well known in America. People really didn't know much about him. But we had an incredible menu with incredible charcuterie, and we provide a service that was just kind, thoughtful. It was speedy. It was everything you expect it to be, and very quickly, I was able to bring my entire clientele there. From we used to have Margaret Thatcher eating a burger with her hands. You name it. Everybody that was somebody was at Bar Balut. But I was recently with a friend of mine, who told me, Paulo, I remember being at an event, and all of a sudden we all called you, and within 30 minutes we were all sitting down in a table, and everybody was there eating burgers and having a glass of wine. I think we had everything perfect. We had the right food, the right pricing. For me, a restaurant has to have value for money. It has to have a great menu that you want to. At Bar Balut, you could be eating a piggy burger, or you can have a coq au vin, or you can have a charcuterie with incredible bread and a glass of wine. But I think what the most important thing we did at Bar Balut is that we made everybody feel like you were Her Majesty.
And again, because London would have had, well, it did. It is for a long time at that point. It's got great restaurants with great operators. I think it was hugely on an upswing. You had Heston Blumenthal next door. You've got a lot of great restaurants. So you've got to make sure that you're offering value and great service, haven't you? So how important was it to like be on your A game every day?
Yeah. What you mentioned there is perfect. So we're sitting in a 5-star hotel. You got dinner by Heston upstairs, facing the park. Which I love Heston, and at the time it's Ashley Palmer Watts running the kitchen, which is a close friend of mine, and it was impeccable. So we had to be exactly. I think that pressure of having that place, that restaurant upstairs, Zuma next door, we had to provide the best service. But we our teams, we were really well trained, and we were really focused on, our knowledge was impeccable. Our product was incredible. Our bar program was amazing. Our wine program was amazing. And on the floor, we perform every night, and it was nonstop. It was nonstop. And then also, Mandarin was, David Nichols was extremely supportive of what we did, and working with Daniel Boulud and Michael Lawrence, who was a director of operations at the time. They gave us all the support that we needed in order to perform, and it was a special moment. I just went to a wedding recently where there's a lot of people from Barbaloo that we worked together, and I think what we created at Barbaloo in the years that we're there, it was something exceptional that people that went and experienced. You're talking about taking food. Yeah, I remember seeing our food, and because it was so dark at night, you couldn't see anything. And back in those days, we didn't even allow photos, which is funny. But yeah, I think we created something that all my friends rave about Margot, but they go, Paulo, you were amazing there, because we just knew that we could call you and get a table and get a bite to eat, and you look after us. I think Barbaloo was special.
Mm.
I wish you were still there, and but I'm sure Daniel Boulou will come to London at some point.
So at that point, you've had 6 great years. What makes you start thinking, you know what? I want to open my own restaurant. Like, give me the thought behind that process.
Yeah, I wasn't really planning to open a restaurant, although that was always the dream. I always had a vision, and I always knew what I wanted to do. And I remember, after 6 years at Barbaloo, I think Heidi, my wife, mentioned. She goes, "Look, I at the time I was getting a lot of offers in Hong Kong and different parts of the world, and Heidi goes, we're not moving anywhere, so you might as well open your own restaurant." And I think that was the idea. And I was always kind of behind the scenes, with Chris Corbin, Jeremy King, as Scott's, the team that worked there, Richard Caring at Barbaloo. I was able to really, uh, put in place a lot of things that I thought was the right thing to do, the right approach, the right energy, the right focus, and I put my heart and soul into that restaurant, and because I literally love Daniel Boulou, because I learned so much from him, and having a leader like that. Like we were talking about, the same kind of people, the Denny Myers, the Daniel Boulous, the Corbin and Kings, and people that are just genuine and kind, and they allowed people like myself to flourish. They understand that they have they have a vehicle, which is, if it's Formula One, it's the car, and they trust the driver to get in it and jump in and do what you do, and do what you love. And I thought, okay, if I were to open my restaurant, I'll be able to do all those little things that I always wanted to do. All those little details. How do we welcome a client? How do we, what design is going to be? What kind of food is going to be? How is going to be the logistics of walking in or making a booking? Every little detail, because there's so many points to do a restaurant. There's create a restaurant. It's a lot of work back at the house, front of the house, the wine program, the cocktail program. There's so many parts, and I think that's the beauty of it. I think when it all comes together, I imagine a play with actors, on Broadway or here in the West End. From starting to putting everything together to have your first show, it must be so exciting. So I always wanted to. That was the dream for me. It was my dream.
So how'd you go about opening a restaurant in London? Let's be honest, I can imagine at that time, 2016, I'd imagine landlords didn't want to just give anybody a property to go rent out, especially a prominent property. How, in your mindset, where was the first step? Was it meeting with investors?
The first step was I was getting approached. There was a period from 2013 onwards that a lot of companies were approaching me, and I stayed through. I wanted to be. I stayed with Daniel because it was the right thing to do. I believe in loyalty and I believe that was the right thing for me to do. Stay with him. I remember I was devastated to have to tell Daniel Blood that I was leaving. And I remember going to his room and we're both crying. And I remember him taking me to an Italian restaurant because I told him I was going to open an Italian restaurant. But the first, I was approached, and then from being approached, I was approached to meet investors. And I met with these investors in many, many, many occasions. And they decided to invest on the project. And that's how it started.
And I guess there's lots of pros and cons to having investors. And I guess one of the pros is the fact that you probably can't do it without them because, again, London's quite a big place to open a restaurant.
Yeah, listen, we were very fortunate with the investors that we had from Margot. They were really good people, and they allowed us to do what we wanted to do. Really, to be quite honest, they were great. Pressure. There's always going to be pressure, especially opening Margot was a big thing. It was the press. The industry really got behind me. I don't know if you saw, but every chef in the world came in to see us, from Ale Ducasse to Massimo Bottura. Every chef in the world sent us videos and congratulations and all that. But then when the honeymoon is over, I remember we received a bad review from Faye Mashler. Talking about our salt and peppers, and it was difficult. And then we were very fortunate to have reviews from Jay Rayner and Giles Corrin and Tom Parker Bowes that were amazing. But it's a lot of pressure, as you mentioned. Rents are rents are just ridiculous in London. I mean, it's incredible. But as a restaurateur, just because I pay £1 million for my rent, I can charge you £60-70 for a plate of pasta. So it's really difficult, and there's a lot of pressure. And at the end of the day, we especially we're opening a kind of like high-end restaurant in Covent Garden, in a location at the time that nobody really knew about it, the Holborn coming into Covent Garden. And then we have doormen at the front. And once the honeymoon was over, as I mentioned earlier, we were empty for lunch, and then we were getting better for dinner. But then we really had to work hard and getting out there and letting people know about our product. And in the end, all engines were working, and we started doing really, really well. But it takes time. People go.
How long did it take to start feeling like you were on the right path?
Yeah, it was. We were meant to open in May, and we didn't open until October. We started out, that bad review kind of shook us really bad, and I remember us going, let's just put our heads down and focus on the product and make sure that we delivered the best service. And we had a good chef. We had a good team, really incredible team. We were able to train them for 7 weeks before we opened, and we're really, I remember Giles Corn review he wrote a barely 6 months open. Margot is a ready-made Ivy or Le Caprice. So those, in Jay Rayner, those reviews start helping. But it took us time not only to be really really polished, which people thought we were polished. We didn't think we were, but and then we knew that the area had a lot of barristers, and so we started approaching companies and really wanted to work with the community, and then people started embracing us. And back then, we're still doing pre-theaters and post-theaters. The world is completely different now, but we're right there in the West End, so a lot of people want to come in before and after a meal. But it took a while. People. I remember a lot of people. I get invited to go to a lot of openings in hotels and so forth, and I never go right away because it's just unfair. It takes time to get really the all engines running. So it takes time.
So we've always got this perception from watching American films and or documentaries and so on that reviewers can make or break a restaurant in New York. Is that true in the UK?
Oh, completely. Oh, for sure. I think yes. I think I respect Jay Rayner very much. I respect Giles Corn. I respect Tom Parker Bowes. This guys they've been in the business a long time. Grace Dent. They've been in the business a long time. It helps a lot, and also it can damage you. But whatever happens there, whether it's better or good, what you do is you just focus on getting better, and you focus on the product. And what people don't understand is that sometimes a negative feedback. You got to listen to your clients. You have to have those negative feedbacks, because a lot of the times it's be able to say, you know what, hands up, I made a huge mistake. It was my fault. You're right. Let's let people are complaining about this. We need to adapt, understand, and let's make this product better. Let's make our service better. You know what? They had a point. How come we didn't get this right? So embrace all the negative things, because it's part of growth. It's part of developing. So whenever you just put I remember when Brexit happened and everything is going up and all the products and prices, and we're like, you can't just be just reactive. Oh, let's raise our prices and let's do this and let's do that. No, we got to think. For me, a restaurant is about working with the best ingredients. Providing the best service and hospitality, having value for money. There are people, and then changing the menu often. So regulars, by in a few months they've tried everything. So I think you should be able to go. You go to places now. You're paying £25 for a drink. Average per person is 125, 150 pounds, and wow, it's sad. It shouldn't be like that. You should be able to go to places where you can, everybody should be able to afford it. So to have a set menu that it's a price point that's reasonable for everyone. A restaurant is for everyone. We're here to provide, to look after you, to provide a service. And I think things have got a little bit out of control.
Is there one thing when you were running your own restaurant, you're in your own business? Is there one think of a time when you thought, damn, now I know what a boss feels like. Was there anything that ever resonated, like a story, a day when you think, oh, this is what he must have went through or what she must have went through, because now I'm the boss,
Look, I'll tell you this. I'm very disciplined, and I'm very focused, and I can be full on. I can, and of course, I thought, I was pretty tough on my team. I can be very emotional, and I can be pretty tough. And even when we were getting a lot of pressure and we weren't doing well, but I was always trying to go to seminars, and like I remember going to Welcome Conference in New York, and always trying to learn to become a better boss. And you always make your mistakes. You always, you're trying to be perfect, and you're trying to reinvent the wheel, and do things in different ways. And yeah, of course, I made a lot of mistakes in the process. I think I deliver everything that I promised to my team. We were having. I remember we had waiters crying because Alan Ducasse is there, and we promised. I think we deliver, and I think I think I was tough on my team a lot, and but it was just part of. I think every successful football team, football club, or when you're performing at that level, you're trying to be the best version of yourself every day, and sometimes you fall short. And I think I fell short many times.
Where exactly do you think you fell short? Like if this is a therapy session for a moment and we're trying to learn from our mistakes, where do you think you could have done better?
I think that often, because often being on the floor, and being on the floor, and if a mistake was made, um, things that most of the time we were so perfect in what we did, and I think sometimes excellence and being perfect all the time. It's okay that we're not perfect all the time. Sometimes you make mistakes and you pick up, and the way you pick up, and I think I could have given the staff a little more room to, sometimes I think I'm always hands on. Oh, I'll do it. I'll take care of it. Let other people do it. That's what the masters do. That's what Daniel Boulou does. That's what Danny Meyer does. And they understand that there's a time to let it go and let your team make their own mistakes. Same way with my kids now. I get worried that they're gonna get hurt. I get worried that's part of the process. Things will happen to them, whether it's a fight or a bully at school or things like that. So I think that I was too overprotective sometimes, and I'm a happy-go-lucky, and I'm usually fun and polite, and I think I should have given them a little bit more freedom.
And I guess, but does that come from the fact that you just wanted everything to be perfect? There was a lot on the line for you.
Yes, I think a lot of it had to do with my ego. I think because I remember my mom would go, once you open a sandwich shop and then you open a pasta shop and then you put them together, and why do you have to spend this kind of money in a restaurant, and why do you have to compete with these people? Why you just started small. And we started big, and I think I was trying to prove myself to to everyone that I arrived and I was able to perform at that level. And I wanted people to come in and have the best experience in their lives. And the reason I opened an Italian restaurant, because I believe the quality and ingredients and the freshness, and I knew that our food was not the best in the world, but I knew our service was. We were Food Network best restaurant outside Italy. We won Gambero Rosso twice. We won a lot of awards, and I'm very proud of them. But it's not about this is a great. It's not about the awards. What I learned from Danny Meyer is that it's not, and Danielle also, but Danny Meyer especially. The best feeling in the world is if me and you were having a conversation and you say, the best restaurant in the world is Noma, and I would say, the best restaurant for me is Margot, or is it's the best restaurant is where your clients say the word, it's my favorite. If I'm saying this is the best and you say, Paulo, you know what, that's the best for you, but my favorite is, that is one something clicked in at when we were doing really well. We went from doing 500 covers to 5,000 covers a month, and people go, Paulo, I come to you. All my clients complain because they all live in Mayfair, nice bridge, but we come to you because you know what I love about you, and is that if something goes wrong, you take care of it right away. You make us feel good, and you always in the room making sure everything's perfect. And I was always trying to be in the room, and I just want, it's like the feeling of being at home. I just want your wife to have the best meal there is, and have a blast. When you become someone's favorite, that's, I think, when you really have achieved something special.
How do you keep in check the ego? Because we mentioned at the beginning that you're quite competitive and you want to do that. And you mentioned just recently that you want to do the best that you can do. And you mentioned the ego. How do you keep that in check? Like, because that must be really difficult, because you've got people coming in and saying, this is the best I've ever had. So that probably feeds the ego a little bit, saying, oh, I loved it here. This is my favorite. How do you keep that in check? Because obviously you're self-aware, we're all self-aware, well, we hope we're all self-aware of our ego, so how can you keep that, especially when you're at the top of your game, and everyone's telling you for the most part how great it is? How can you then stop feeding the beast?
Yeah, yeah. It's very difficult to do. You just gotta remind yourself that you make a lot of mistakes, and every day is a new challenge. And at the end of the day, we're just a restaurant trying to provide a service, and we know that there's so many other restaurants there or a lot better than us. We don't pay as much as they pay. We train really well. We really look after the front of the house team. You just gotta, it's that humble of knowing that anything can change. Brexit was a big wake up call, because things are happening outside of your environment that you can't control. Landlord is raising the price on the rent. Business rates are going up. There's things there. Those things, I think, keep you humble, because you're just trying to, how can people were complaining about our prices? How can we make a better offer? So it's hard, but you're trying to for me, the goal was always to inspire the young generation. I think for me, if I really look deep I wanted to be that guy that I didn't have when I was 16. To have that mentor, because I think what happens in the restaurant world is you have people coming from Italy, from Spain, from Greece, from all over, from Africa, all different parts, and we're in this beautiful city of London, where all these people come together to do this. And I think being a good leader, inspire them. Being a better version of yourself, which you will make mistakes, and you got to look yourself in the mirror. But for me, if we can provide to that 72 members of your family a good environment that they can develop, they can grow, they can eat well. We focus on, let's give them the best meal that we can so they can perform the best. But yeah, you do get cocky and you think that you're the best, and then there are things that happen that tells you, you're not that good.
Well, a good friend once told me, be modest. A lot was accomplished before you were born. Because we have this, because we have this, we all do it. We have this great idea and we think it's amazing. And we forget that centuries and thousands of years of people have lived before us. And actually, it's probably been invented. Someone else has probably had the idea.
Oh, yeah?
And it's probably a good idea nonetheless, but it's not revolutionary for a lot of, so I'm probably my ego's worst enemy, because I constantly poo-poo any idea that I've got. So I'm just like, friends have to tell me, no, that is actually a really good idea. You can go for that. But you exited Margot in 2020.
Yeah.
And then what sort of happened after that then? What was the next thing for you?
So 2020, Margot, I stepped out. COVID just happened. And I was very fortunate to be. I became very creative. I think I was really scared and concerned and worried. For me, Margot was, I wanted to develop and grow and do different things. And now I see myself in a different path. And I created this project that I always wanted to do. And then I got very fortunate. I received a phone call and to do TED Talk, and that completely changed my life.
Why? What was the significance of that? So a TED Talk in itself, for those that don't know, it's a real big deal to be invited to do a TED Talk. Yeah. And but when you said it changed your life, in what way? How did it? What was the significance?
First of all, that's a good question. I always knew where I wanted to go. I always knew the path of the restaurant is going to be my life, and I get to this top, and now I opened my restaurant, and I became very fortunate to do that. So, and then that stopped, and then COVID happened, which were, me, my wife, and 3 boys and a dog are locked in this house. And I remember going downstairs for the first time and watching Heidi with 2 boys in the kitchen and 1 in the bedroom, and it just seemed surreal. And it just seemed like, what's really happening here? And then when I went to get creative, and I'm like, wow, I got to start all over again. So to be honest with you, I wasn't quite sure. I wasn't quite sure what am I going to do next? Am I going to open a restaurant next? What am I going to do that? Am I going to? So I worked on this project. I couldn't find it. Nobody wanted to invest money. Nobody wanted to do anything. And then I have to have an income coming in and to look after my family. And I wasn't quite sure what to do. And then when TED Talk came, for me, it was like, oh my God, that's my favorite thing in the world. So often people talk about, you sometimes you get lucky and you get a break. I mean, for me, that was like the universal going, wow, let me give you this guy a break. I think he deserves a little break. And for me, it was like, it's my favorite thing in the world, and I'll get to speak about it. And like you, just asking me about New York, I never told anybody the story about me opening a coffee shop until I did a TED Talk. So what it did, I think, for me, was that I launched Paulo De Tarso Hospitality, and then with TED Talk, major companies start asking me to do a keynote speech about hospitality. So I worked with a lot of brands like Hackett, for example, Seven for Mankind. Then I started working with other big companies, Norton Motorcycles, and all those other brands that had nothing to do with hospitality wanted to learn about hospitality. And I think even on the day, a lot of people really loved what I had to say, and it just opened this platform for me. Last summer I was in California, and I did keynote speech for Red Lobster, a company that owns 700 restaurants and other groups in America, in which it was incredible for me to, I'm not an expert on anything, but people wanted to hear what I had to say about hospitality and creating cultures and building teams and all that. So it just opened, I think it gave it credit to, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about. I think TED Talk, it becomes worldwide.
Yeah, no, definitely. And, and the upside is you got to get out of the house during COVID. So.
Exactly.
So one thing that comes to mind, you just mentioned, Brexit, escalating rents, COVID, and obviously this would have all been pretty much magnified in central London. Why do you mentioned to me the other day on the phone that you sort of think that government doesn't really respect hospitality? Can you give me a bit of a background thoughts behind why you think that?
I don't necessarily like getting political, but I think is what it is. I was recently with a few MPs, and I think that there's always something when it comes to the government. I mean, I don't quite understand. It's an industry that brings 19 to 20 billion pounds a year. So let me just give you an example. If you come from New York, if you come from Hong Kong, if you come from anywhere in the world, you stay in a hotel, whether it's 5-star, 4-star, 2-star, 1-star, Holiday Inn. You will get a breakfast. You will have lunch, dinner at some point. You will go to the theater. You West End. Everything revolves around hospitality. The way we look after our tourists, right? So it's a big sector that needs to be respected. And I don't think that it's not. I think I see in America or France and all these other cultures that I think I believe we did get a lot of support during the COVID, but now I think there's always something else. Whether it's doctors and nurses, which well deserved, teachers. Then we have the police, and then we have transportation. And I think for a few years, service charge was a big topic. I just think that we're in the bottom of the list, and they don't take that part, hospitality, our sector. I don't think it's well respected. Someone goes, you know what? Today we're gonna take this serious, and we need to make changes, and we need to do something. And I think that we're just never on that agenda. We're in the bottom of the list, and the meeting runs too late, and we're not important enough. I really believe that.
What do you think you'd like to see from any government, regardless of whether it's this one or the next one? What is it you'd like to see?
I mean, if you look at if what landlords are doing to rents, business rates, I think you look all this the independent restaurants, they will not survive. The margin of restaurants is already really small. So now we don't have the staffing. Because we came out of the government. We're not part of the European Union. All products, everything is so expensive now. I think the government needs to help the sector somehow. I don't know exactly what the solution would be, but they need a break.
I think for definite, business rates need complete overhaul because they're an absolute mess. And what usually happens is that smaller units or non-profitable units, or they'll get away with it because of small business rate relief. But a large restaurant like what Margot was, or the Delaunay or the Wolsey, they wouldn't, because they're a big enterprise. So that does need some work. However, the problem is with London, I think, is that every man and his dog who is in the hospitality industry wants to probably open in London. So you can see how landlords are a bit reluctant to say, well, actually, I'll do this cheaper. Do you get what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if you owned a freehold in London, I think you'd probably bend over backwards to have someone like Jeremy King in there. Like,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're going to say, well, actually, like, this is a good tenant to have. But if it's an unknown person, you'd probably be a bit like, well, Starbucks are offering me X and such is offering me Y. So I can see why, if it's a free market enterprise, I can see why landlords don't want to budge.
No, listen. It's easy to criticize the other side, but I live in Islington. I live near Upper Street, and I moved there 2005, and I see what it is today. And today is all this big brands they're there because they're the only ones. Screwfix just opened last week. They're the only ones that are going to be able to afford those kind of rents. And apparently, from what I've been told, the Islington borough it goes up 25% every year. I think there's got to be a system that controls that. You know what I mean? When Balthazar, places like that, are paying £1 million rent. Where does it stop? But exactly what you said, you have all those big hotels open up, Ruffles and Peninsula, and every investor, everybody wants to open a restaurant in Mayfair, and that's why I think a lot of people are moving to different locations. That's one of the good things that has happened. People are going to East London, South London, West London. People are going everywhere else because the pressure, the rent, and makes an operator extremely uncomfortable. It's very difficult to do with that. So I think, you have some good landlords that work with you. They believe in the product. They're part of the process. They're part of the process. Look, you're going to develop this. You're spending this kind of amount of money here. How can we work together? There's got to be a part. I think for me, there's got to be a marriage and a partnership in a landlord, in an operator. And when that happens, I think everybody flourishes. Everybody,
Yeah.
and I think that raising rent every year, that doesn't help.
The good news is, in the meantime, if you need a drill, there's a screw fix down the road. So, but no, on a serious note, because I don't want to poo-poo this, but it's something that stayed in my mind for a while. And a few years ago, just before COVID, there was shortages, staff shortages. It was before Brexit as well. So the staff shortages. And I remember reading an article with Sat Baines, and they asked him about the staff shortages. And he said, it is increasing. I'm paraphrasing now because it's an old article. And he's in Nottingham, so he's out of the hustle and bustle of London. But he said, there's too many restaurants. Everywhere you look now, there's restaurants everywhere. British people eat out in record numbers. Do you think there's some truth to that actually the market is squeezed because there is so many eateries now?
Yeah, I mean, coming to London in 2005 and looking at London now, 2024. The choices are, it's incredible. You can go to so many places, so many good places, so many bad places, so many mediocre places. But I always thrive on competition. I think competition is good. I think having competition, it makes you deliver a better product. If you're gonna take the initiative of opening something, it's gotta be good. It's gotta be better, and it benefits the clientele. It benefits the customer in a long run, because you can go to Denny Meyer's Burger Shake Shack, or you can go to Five Guys, or you can go to a local guy and get this best burger. But you're right. I think the market is completely saturated. There's so many restaurants, and even now with everything that's happening, still so many openings in places. But I think I think that happens in cities like London, Paris, Rome, and New York, and São Paulo, Brazil. I don't think it will ever stop, because there's a lot of good people coming on board. I think what I love when we open, Margot, is that it was nice to see a lot of independent people coming together, maitre d' with the chef and opening restaurants. You see a lot of independent guys open places. Paul Foster opened Salt. I climbed Kilimanjaro with Paul Foster and Ashley Palm Waltz. I love Sat Banks. I mean, all those guys are becoming creative and open their own business. I think is good for everyone. But also, that's a part of the government needs to see and see. Wow, there's a lot of creativity in this business. How can we create a support system to help them? If you look at retail, I'll give you an example. At my home, we get deliveries all day from Amazon. And here we are trying to, what's going to happen to Oxford Circus and retail sectors and all those empty buildings? Because, I much rather go to John Lewis and support a great company like that and buy products for them, or go to my local guy, butcher and everything else, instead of going to the big boys. But you order something from Amazon and it comes to you the next day and it's the same price, and you just, it's kind of scary.
Yeah, no, I get that. I get there is challenges, but but like you mentioned, the paradox is that in the same time of having lots of challenges, there are lots of openings of restaurants and hotels, and also, these things don't happen overnight. Someone started, planning their restaurant 4 years ago, and they're probably just coming to fruition. So I'm not suggesting that it's not going to be, difficult, but it is just interesting if government are seeing that the market is flourishing, would they want to interfere? And I think one of the other things is that government are hearing from every sector that they need help. So it's like, who do you listen to? And we've got the election around the corner. So do they just think we're doing nothing because we've got the election around the corner? So it's a tough one, isn't it?
It really is. I think the election is playing a big part. And you're right. I think, of course, the priority should go to doctors and nurses, police. We're having crime rates are going up now, and the transports, and of course they need to be looked after first, but they got to get to us at some point, and to come up with some solutions, and at least sit on the table, with us, and have that discussion. How can we be a service as we do? If you look for me is this. I think that when COVID and everything happens, who was out there helping people? Hospitality. chefs were cooking, staff was serving, we were helping as much as everybody else. We were there now. In helping everybody else. I think it's a sector that it's always there to help. We work hard and we just wanted to be heard. That's all.
No, and I get that sentiment. I did a podcast yesterday with somebody heavily involved with the fishing industry, and he said, I just want government to ask us before they make decisions. And I think you're saying the same thing, is that if you're going to make a decision on hospitality, talk to people in hospitality. And I think that goes without saying, you'd hope. But, rather than talking to experts in quotations and getting it wrong, actually talk to people in hospitality and find out what the difficulties are. But, one thing that you've mentioned, and I've heard Danny Mayer mention it, and I'd like you to give me a little bit of background before we sort of close off today, is why do customers not come first in hospitality? Because I was brought up in a business where my dad always used to say, the customer is always right. So flip that on its head and tell me why.
Love it. First of all, hospitality and service is delivering a product from A to B. How do we deliver that product? Hospitality is how we make the recipient of the product feel. Okay, so that's really important. If you were building a team, when you're starting with a restaurant, you're building a restaurant, you're building the design, you're putting everything together. Your main priority is your team. The front of the house, the back of the house is everybody there. So if you focus on your team and your team is provided for, cared for, they are well trained, they get paid well, you create an environment that is, they are protected, just like you do with your family. So if you focus, a customer is intelligent enough to come to an environment and know, are the staff engaging with each other? Are they happy to be here? Are they, when you ask for something, they don't turn around the other way and go the other way. They don't even acknowledge you. I mean, this happens all the time. Are they well groomed? Do they look after? When I ask you a question, can they reply to the answer? If they don't know something, can they go and get someone else to look after you? So I think a lot of a lot of the customers should not come first. First, this is a Danny Meyer thing that I learned, day one-on-one. It's your team comes first, and if your team is happy, if a football team is focused on the fans, they're never going to perform. They focus on there is the coach with the entire 28 players, medical, and they work together, the drills, the training, the focus on their body, mind, spirit, and then they perform. So you can focus on the outside, because whatever, if the team is focused, and you go to stages, you're losing, but it just comes together. So the customer is not always right, because the customers, they might be right, but if you focus on your team, it's your team first, and then it comes your suppliers. Then it comes, and then if the supplier is happy, your clients will be happy. If your clients are happy, your investors are happy. I think it goes down the chain. And a lot of the times, you've been to situations where customers they're not correct and they're not right. And I think if you really focus on building an exceptional team and looking after them and providing the best service there is, your clients, they know that. They know when someone's been genuine, when they're kind. It goes back to the values, empathy, integrity, self-awareness, and so I think if you focus on building the best team there is, everything will just fall in place.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there has to be a synergy between all those things. Otherwise, someone's going to be unhappy in that process, and you don't want anybody to be unhappy. But you're right. If you make sure all those other people are happy first, then your customers are going to actually get a good experience too, aren't they?
Yeah, no, for me, I remember, one thing that was very noticeable for me when I first moved here is that A client would not like something and they will not say anything. They will not complain. It's not
That's a British way.
the British way. They don't complain. So I start noticing that, and I remember telling my staff, if you go to a table where that drink is 3/4 full and that plate hasn't been touched or is slightly touched, I want you to go there and you bring the managers right away, and we're gonna go to the table. Excuse me, sir, is something wrong with that Blood Mary? And when you ask that question, they go, you know what? It just didn't taste right. And we always did that. So I always make sure that whenever someone asked for the bill, it was the managers that gave the bill, because I want to make sure that no, please, no, if just let me take this plate. Here's the menu. You didn't like that. Just there's no point of arguing. But so it is. I remember situations where I told a client, and I actually went to them, sir, next time you have a bite of anything and it doesn't taste correctly, just let me know. Here, and I did this. No, I'm going to take this ribeye. Here we go. Here's the menu. Order something else. Let's not get the steak today. We're going to get something else because we can't control this. And you start educating those clients. Now those clients, I told all my clients that we had a problem. And it said, like, just tell us right away. Don't try something and be upset about it, because things happen. So if you tell me what it is, I'm able to fix it. And I think by doing that to a lot of situations, that's how I really built my reputation. You got to be active, listening to what's happening, watching your surroundings, see people's behavior. And I think a lot of people don't do those old school, whatever you call, watch people the way they behaved, watch people when they're asking for something, be there all the time, constantly, even when you're empty in a restaurant. I used to tell my staff, stay next to each other and focus on the service and look at it. And if someone raises their arm, go to them. So I think it's that creating that openness, communication, and let your clients know something wrong, please tell me right away so I can fix it. If you don't tell me, you go home and you get on a keyboard and you type how awful it was. You never give me a chance to fix it. And I think that's the problem.
You've worked with a lot of great people. Is there something that is just ingrained in you? Is it, whether it's from Daniel, whether it's from Corbin and King, whether it's your friend Danny Mayer, you didn't work there, but is there anything that is just ingrained in you that stayed with you after that experience?
Yeah, I think what Daniel Boulud and Danny Meyer, I mean, what these guys have in common is that they love what they do. And they never stop thinking. They're so curious about how can I improve myself all the time, and how can I improve people around me, and how can I get the best out of people. And not only reaching try to be they're perfectionists and working towards excellence, but they're relentless. They never stop. And you know what? They care. They really care about people. They care about teams. And money is just a consequence of all the things that they do. So they're not those businessmen that we're seeing in the world today. They're kind, thoughtful people that just made it for all the right reasons.
Yeah. So, because we're coming to the end of this, what's next with you? What are we going to see from you?
Listen, good question. I don't know. I'm not sure if opening my restaurant will be something I want to do, but it's.
Do you still have that itch?
I do. I don't think it's it's a lot happening in London right now. I do have the itch. I do. I'm gonna be involved with chefs and restaurants, and one level or the other. I'm consulting. I'm doing my keynote speeches and working with companies. But I definitely, it's you take the player out of the game, and then the player becomes a coach. I just think I just need to be there. Whether I just need to be there because I just live and breathe the passion. I love this industry, and I just wanted to, I think we have a young generation, that needs to be guided properly. There's great things happening out there with, the Michel Roux, what he's doing with chefs and the foundation and the gold scholarship. And I think there needs to be more because, London has become, the capital of the world for the culinary world, where 25, 30 years ago, it was pies and chips and things like that. So we have the best chefs in the world. We have international chefs. We got, our incredible chefs that are here. And I think that, I don't understand why kids are going to school in Switzerland and Spain and France. Why can't we have the best culinary school there is in London, where we don't have those people? Because London is never going to stop. So I think, I think it's a beautiful profession. And for those people out there listening, you can start from the bottom like I did, and you can be successful general manager, director of operations, open your own restaurant one day. Because, there's millions of restaurants out there. The world does not need another restaurant. But what the world needs is a kind person doing something for the kind reasons and providing a product and a service that looks after people, and I think we have a young generation that can do really well and thrive in this incredible business of ours.
Fantastic. Well, on that note, I will let you go and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much for your time. We've come to the end. And I just want to wish you the best of luck. And again, thank you for your time.
Estelle, listen, I've listened to your podcast before, and you've had a lot of great people, and Nathan Outlaw and Amanda and people that I love. And I think you do an incredible job. Thank you very, very much for thinking of me, and looking forward to talking to you soon.
I really enjoyed having Paulo on the podcast. It was great to finally get him on and hear about his past and how he got here today and his present. But I really hope we can get him on again to discuss his future. But also, I wanted to tap into how we can all do better at hospitality, because I think that's really important. And a question I had after talking to Paulo was, how far do we all go to give great hospitality? Discover the cleaning revolution with Ceres Natural Degreaser, the eco-friendly powerhouse that effortlessly tackles the toughest grease and grime. Our potent natural formula is fragrance-free, phosphate-free, BPA-free, and designed for professionals. Remember, not only do you want to clean something with a powerful substance, but you don't want to risk your staff. So get rid of all of those harsh chemicals and transform your cleaning today. Order today, free UK mainland delivery, and we deliver to loads of other countries too. Be sure to share this podcast with your friends and on social media. If you like this episode, then chances are others will like it too. If you have a moment, do us a favour, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or your favourite podcast player.